So ಇವತ್ತು ಟುವರ್ಡ್ಸ್ ಇನ್ಫಿನಿಟಿ ತಗೊಳ್ತಾ ಇದ್ದೀವಿ ಇವತ್ತಿಂದ. ನೆಕ್ಸ್ಟ್ ಒಂದು 2 weeks ಅಲ್ಲಿ ವಿಲ್ ಗೋ ಥ್ರೂ ದಿಸ್ ಟುವರ್ಡ್ಸ್ ಇನ್ಫಿನಿಟಿ. ಸರಿನಾ? ಆ ಪ್ರಿಫೇಸ್ ಎಲ್ಲ ನೀವು ಓದ್ಕೊಳ್ತೀರಾ? ಪ್ರಿಫೇಸ್ ಎಲ್ಲ ನೀವು ಓದ್ಕೊಳ್ರಿ. ನಾನು ಫಸ್ಟ್ ನಾಲೆಜ್ ಇಂದ ಶುರು ಮಾಡೋಣ. ಚಾಪ್ಟರ್ ನಾಲೆಜ್ ಶುರು ಮಾಡೋಣ. Knowledge or gnana. When the time for creation came, preparation commenced, currents flowed out, vibrations intensified, and formation of knots started. Momentum gathered and churning process sets in, and the actions and the reactions begin and continued till objects began to assume individual forms. We don't need to worry about that. That we will actually read about it in a different chapter altogether. He's just given it in a very concise form, how the creation happened. The process of creation thus came into full swing. Animate and inanimate objects came into being. In the course of time, all the objects came to light and the universe was formed. The activity which started went on developing till finally the idea of inactivity, which lay at the bottom of motion, began to surge up. ಹೆಂಗಾಯ್ತು ಅಂತಂದ್ರೆ ಇನ್ಆಕ್ಟಿವಿಟಿ ಇತ್ತು, ನಂತರ ಆಕ್ಟಿವಿಟಿ ಬಂತು. ಆಕ್ಟಿವಿಟಿ ಎಷ್ಟು ಮಟ್ಟಿಗೆ ಇದಾಯ್ತು ಅಂತಂದ್ರೆ ultimately the inactivity also now started to surge up. It formed the basis of all philosophical speculations. Mental aspirations leading to the search of something higher started from this point and became the foundation of religion. The activity which had already sprung up in us reminded us of its non-existent state. In the online ಮಾಡ್ಕೊಳ್ರಿ. The activity which had already sprung up in us reminded of its non-existent state. Andre activity ildiruವಂತ state ಅನ್ನು ನೆನಪು ಮಾಡುತ್ತೆ ನಮಗೆ. When we thought of it, we hit upon the previous state of inactivity. In this way, activity reminded us inactivity, and the inactivity explained to us the meaning of the activity. Now please underline this. Activity reminded us of the inactive state, and the inactivity explained to us the meaning of activity. Now this is a very important thing. Inactivity explained to us the meaning of activity. So what are we doing in life? When we say that we are leading a spiritual life, what we are doing is our activities are aligned in such a way that it takes us to inactivity in due course of time. That is a spiritual activity. ಅರ್ಥ ಆಗ್ತಿದ್ಯಾ? Activity which are aligned in taking us to the direction of inactivity is a spiritual activity. Thus, the two opposites came to our view. When the first stage of activity came to you, it seems to be quite akin to the state of motionlessness. But now, having been acquainted with the momentum and undergone its pleasing effect to a great extent, the thought of search of peace began to creep up in the mind by itself. So, ತುಂಬಾ ವರ್ಷಗಳು, ತುಂಬಾ ಜನ್ಮಗಳು activity ಮಾಡಿ 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 we have become so well versed with the pleasing effect of the activity that at some point of time we start feeling that we need to have some peace. ದಿನ ಬೆಳಗ್ಗೆಯಿಂದ ರಾತ್ರಿ ಕೆಲಸ ಮಾಡಿದ್ರೆ ರಾತ್ರಿ ಮಲ್ಕೋಬೇಕು ಅಂತ ಅನಿಸುತ್ತಲ್ವಾ? ಅದೇ ತರನೇ after having done activities over many lives, many years of lives, we feel that we need to have some peace. When we started the search, our attention was transfixed upon the calmness which we understood to be somewhat more pleasant. So peace ಹುಡ್ಕೊಂಡ್ಲಿಕ್ಕೆ ಹೋಗುವಾಗ when we tried to look for peace, one thing that we had experienced was calmness. We felt that calmness was something more pleasant than our activity. But so far, we knew not what exactly it was, and nor had we had any taste of it. Experience promoted our understanding, and we began to feel that it is undoubtedly something worth achieving, though we had not experienced it as yet. So somebody will give you that some condition is there, it's called as peace. If you are established in peaceful state, it will be nice for you. We have no clue what is this peace, but we now start aspiring for it. This is what may be permitted as the preliminary stage of gnana or knowledge. This is the first stage of gnana or knowledge. In other words, we start aspiring for something that we have no experience of. That is the first stage. Okay? This is like aspiring for UPSC. You have no clue how it will be like to work in UPSC, but you start aspiring for it. This is like working in an IT company. You have no clue what it is. If you ask anybody who wants to kind of join a course after second PUC, they say that I will join computer science. I'll go to an IT company. Now, but they have no clue what it is to experience being in an IT company. But they have this vague idea. I want to go into this IT company. Now, that is the first stage of knowledge. People may, however, call this understanding as true knowledge, but actually it amounts only to the recognition that there is a state known as peace or tranquility. This is generally the level of common man where he gets enlisted as a Gnani merely for the reason of knowing so much. That is the only significance of Gnana in the eyes of a common man. So anybody who talks about the need for peace in life is considered as a Gnani. That is what we do. So anyone who talks about the need for peace and tranquility in life is called as a Gnani. How this came about is not difficult to understand. The connecting link between the animate and inanimate is its root. A poison and its antidote are mostly found adjacent to one another. When we are in the state of inanimation, it is but natural to think of animation because it is at the base of inanimate and both the states are interconnected. So the animate and the inanimate are both connected at the root. So if we have awareness of the animate, we will also have the awareness of the inanimate. So if we have awareness of the activity, we also have awareness of the inactivity. Now, the first thought that flashed across the mind was to proceed towards the animation, which constituted our first step towards growth. It's a matter of fact that our vision fails to apprehend a thing situated which is very high or very low level. But since man occupies a middle portion, the medium state or the samavastha came to his lot. So something which is higher, it's beyond our reach. Something which is lower, that is also out of our reach. Whatever is there in the middle, that comes to our lot. Now that middle part is called as samavastha, and in the human body, the middle part is the heart. What we call the middle point in us, it is only the heart, and it is at this point that the connecting link between the animate and the inanimate can be most clearly felt. This is the reason why meditation on the heart is very useful. Now they will ask you why meditate on the heart. This is one of the reasons. The root of the animate and the inanimate is clearly felt in the heart. Okay. Now either we express thought, either we ourselves thought of it or the environment pushed us that way. Anyhow, we lead towards animate consciousness. But as long as the sense of consciousness lingers, the idea of worldliness remains, and this the pseudo series have called as Gnana or knowledge. Okay, so I'll just stop here and then after that we'll read the next paragraph. Go ahead. Nikhil.
ಸರ್ ಅದು ಅನಿಮೇಟ್ ಇನ್ಅನಿಮೇಟ್ ಅಂತ ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಕಾನ್ಸೆಪ್ಟ್ ಅರ್ಥನೇ ಆಗ್ತಿಲ್ಲ ಸರ್. ಅಂದ್ರೆ ವಾಟ್ ಡಸ್ ಇಟ್ ಮೀನ್?
Animate andre something which is living and moving. Animate. Inanimate andre something which is not alive, not moving. Like for example, stones, hills, they are not moving. They are inanimate. Any life that you see, they are having movement. That is animate. So animate, inanimate andre one with life, one without life, one with movement, other one without movement. That's all it is. So if we want to go to the root of both, we have to focus on the heart. Now, the root ಏನಿದೆ, if animate ಅಂತಂದ್ರೆ we move towards something which is alive. Inanimate ಅಂದ್ರೆ we move towards something that is not alive. So our search for the root has taken various shapes. For example, we are aware that there is some consciousness inside. So we try to look for consciousness outside. We are aware that we have individual consciousness. So we try to look for universal consciousness. You got the point?
Yes.
We are aware that we have life. So we install idol and we actually put life into it. That is called as prana pratisthapana. So in other words, whatever we have got, we can also look for it outside. But when we look for it outside, we generally end up meeting failure. The best thing to do is look for the root at the base of where all these things are proceeding from. So if you want to look for the base, then our heart, remember, has two directions in which it can flow. It can flow outwards and downwards, or it can flow inwards and upwards. If it flows downwards and outwards, it is going towards the animate, inanimate objects in the world. If it flows inwards and upwards, it is going towards the root of that particular thing. That's all. But this flow occurs in the heart only. Either the direction is outwards and downwards, then you are focusing on the animate and inanimate object which are created in nature. That is not going to give you the solution for the root of these two things. If you want to go to the root of these two things, what you have to do is go to that thing which is behind these two things. In other words, for that, the attention has to be turned inwards and upwards. Because that is where the origin of these things are, animate and inanimate objects. That's what we are doing in our meditation sadhana. And that is the reason why we are focusing on the heart. By closing our eyes and bringing our attention on the heart, we are withdrawing the attention from the external animate and inanimate objects. When we withdraw the attention from the external animate and inanimate objects, that gives us an opportunity for us to go deeper into ourselves. When we go deeper into ourselves, we are more likely to meet the root of the animate and the inanimate objects. Got the point?
But root of the animate and inanimate objects ಅಂತಂದ್ರೆ it is just anyway about the soul ತಾನೆ. Soul is the what we are
Correct.
actually looking for ಅಂತ.
Correct. The soul and God. That is where we are going towards. That is the root. How did this entire creation came about? Because of from the center. So we are now proceeding back towards the center, which is the root of every existence. The root of every existence and our existence is the same. So when we proceed towards our own existence, the center of our own existence, we are simultaneously proceeding towards the center of the entire existence. ಸರಿನಾ?
Right.
ಇನ್ನು ಏನೋ ಪ್ರಶ್ನೆ ಇದೆಯಾ? ವರುಣ್ ಲೇಟಾಗಿ ಜಾಯಿನ್ ಆದ. ಪ್ರವೀಣ್ ಏನೋ ಪ್ರಶ್ನೆ ಇದೆಯಾ?
ಹೌದು, ಲೇಟ್ ಆಯ್ತು.
ಇರ್ಲಿಪ್ಪ. ಜಿ ಕೆ ಏನೋ ಪ್ರಶ್ನೆ ಇದೆಯಾ? ಜಿ ಕೆ ಇನ್ನೊಂದು ಹಾರ್ಟ್ಫುಲ್ನೆಸ್ ಮೀಟಿಂಗ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಇದಾರಂತೆ. ಪರವಾಗಿಲ್ಲ, ನನಗಿಂತ ಬಿಸಿ ಆಗಿದ್ದಾನೆ. ಒಂದೇ ಟೈಮಲ್ಲಿ ಎರಡೆರಡು ಮೀಟಿಂಗ್ ಇಟ್ಕೊಂಡಿದ್ದಾನೆ. ಗುಡ್ ಅಲ್ವಾ? ಗುಡ್ ಪ್ರೋಗ್ರೆಸ್ ಅಂತ ಆಯ್ತು. ಸೊ ಪ್ರವೀಣ್ ಏನೋ ಪ್ರಶ್ನೆ ಇದೆಯಾ? ಈ ಪರ್ಟಿಕ್ಯುಲರ್ ಚಾಪ್ಟರ್ ಇದೆಯಲ್ಲ, ದಿಸ್ ಇಸ್ ವೆರಿ ವೆರಿ ಇಂಪಾರ್ಟೆಂಟ್. ಯು ಹ್ಯಾವ್ ಟು ಕರೆಕ್ಟ್ಲಿ ಅಂಡರ್ಸ್ಟ್ಯಾಂಡ್ ವೈ ವಿ ಮೆಡಿಟೇಟ್ ಆನ್ ದ ಹಾರ್ಟ್. We meditate on the heart because the root of the animate and inanimate is found in the heart. That is one of the reasons that they expect you to write in the exam. And now Babuji now describes about what is really true gnana or true knowledge is. A small letters ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಬರೆದಿರಲ್ಲ, ಅದು ನಿಮಗೆ ಡೆಫಿನೇಷನ್ ಬರುತ್ತೆ ಎಕ್ಸಾಮ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ, ಅದನ್ನ ನೋಡ್ಕೊಳ್ರಿ. ಜ್ಞಾನ, the word in the ordinary sense means knowledge, which may be of different kinds. It can be physical knowledge, mental knowledge, material knowledge, or spiritual knowledge. In the spiritual sense, the term is applied too vaguely that often that it becomes very difficult to understand its true significance. It's a very broad term. The range it covers extends from the baser level of common understanding to the higher levels of inner enlightenment. Ishtuku gnana anta karitive. Common sense in the hididu higher level of enlightenment ಏನidella ಅಲ್ಲಿವರೆಗೂ ಕೂಡ entire thing is called as gnana. So when somebody says this person is a gnani, we don't know what they are talking about. It's like saying this person is educated. A person who knows how to sign according to government is educated. Whether they have gone to school or they have read or not, that is different. If they know how to sign, that means they are educated. A person can be educated up to 7th standard, 10th standard, PUC, degree, postgraduate degree, PhD. So if you say this person is educated, it doesn't make any sense. What you have to then say is this person is educated to this level. Then it makes sense. Right? Exactly similar as far as gnana is concerned. This person is a gnani up to this point. Now, this gives rise to a lot of confusion and misunderstanding. A man who has learned a few scriptures, another who can argue and assert things on the basis of his book knowledge, still another who recites every moment set phrases like Aham Brahmasmi, claims to be a gnani or enlightened, and is accepted as such by the masses, irrespective of their inner state. Gnana in the real sense refer to the inner condition of the mind, which an Abhyasi develops during the course of their pursuit while passing through different spiritual states at different knots or granthis. That is the definition of Gnana. Underline ಮಾಡ್ಕೊಳ್ರಿ. Gnana is in the real sense refer to the inner condition of the mind. Gnana ಅಂತಂದ್ರೆ it's an inner condition of the mind. When during the course of the spiritual journey, Abhyasi passes through different spiritual states at different spiritual knots. So at every knot or granthi, there are multiple spiritual states. Now these spiritual states create a condition, inner condition of the mind. That inner condition of the mind is what is called as Gnana. So without developing the spiritual state, you cannot be called as a Gnani. When the spiritual state comes in a particular knot, that gets reflected as a condition, inner condition of the mind, and it is that inner condition of the mind that is called as Gnana. You got the point? So without spiritual pursuit, without the chakras, the states being opened, the spiritual states being opened for different chakras, and without that becoming an inner condition of the mind, there is no question of Gnana. All the three should be there. The person should be in spiritual pursuit. Different spiritual states should open in the different chakras, and that should get reflected as an inner condition of the mind. Then that person can be said to be a Gnani. So three conditions. Okay. Gnana is in fact the realization of the conditions prevailing at each knot. This is another definition of Gnana. This is also another question that you will get in the exam. Gnana is in fact the realization of the condition that is prevalent at each knot. Now, since the knots are innumerable, the knowledge gained is also different according to the level of approach of the Abhyasi. Thus, it is almost meaningless to call one a Gnani without defining their level of approach or the limit of knowledge realized by him. Realized by him means he has experienced it, not bookish knowledge. They have experienced that spiritual state. This is the main point which is meant to be elucidated to the readers through the contents of this little book. So Towards Infinity talks about the different conditions that we get in different spiritual points as we progress. Okay? Since the knots are innumerable, the conditions that we get is also innumerable. That's why the name of the book is called as Towards Infinity. Got the point? Why the book is called Towards Infinity? The knots are innumerable. Conditions are also innumerable. To that extent, you will continue to grow. Okay. Now there are pictures here which actually show you the different points that you don't need to worry. If you want to know the specific points, go to spiritual anatomy. That is actually given all the points according to the finger breadth that you can measure on your own system. Okay. Now the granthis are the knots. The real state of enlightenment comes when we get into the full consciousness of the condition of enlightenment, and after imbibing effects secure our merging in it. Now this is a very complex sentence to understand. First you get a condition, then you actually work on the condition to enliven the condition, and then you imbibe the condition and you become merged with the condition. That is what he is talking about. AEIOU. You remember the AEIOU? That is what he is talking about here in the first sentence. First you get the condition, you enliven the condition, then you digest or absorb the condition, and then you become one with the condition. Now, when you become one with the condition, then you can be said to be enlightened to that state. Enlightenment is always about the condition in that particular spiritual point. When we develop this state and merge into its consciousness, we come to know all about it and thus become a Gnani or enlightened. Up to that extent, the blissful state brought about by its attempts our heart to go ahead, and our touch with its offer induces it to enter into the next stage. So every time we become enlightened with certain experience, we feel more inclined to go to the next stage of enlightenment, next part of our journey. So every point that we actually master, we actually become more energized, more enthusiastic to go to the next point. That is what happens in our journey, spiritual journey. And every condition that you get actually gives you energy to move to the next level. Okay. Our courage intimates us to the happy tidings of our onward journey towards the real life, which follows every layavastha or state of merging. In every point, we get a condition and we merge into that layavastha, or we merge into the condition. This merging into the condition is called as layavastha. We get into it, it helps us further, and we begin to advance to the next point. The feeling of restlessness is no doubt there, but if our will is strong and our efforts are sincere, the next condition, which is superior to the previous one, shall dawn without doubt. So we should have some degree of restlessness to go towards the goal. Suppose you are driving from Bangalore to Mysore, like Nitin does. He always has the thought of reaching Mysore as early as possible. So there is some degree of restlessness because he has to see somebody there. Now, Nitin and Nikhil has not told me who has to see, but you assume that somebody has to see. So there is that feeling of restlessness at the back. Now, suppose on the way he sees Bidid's Tatte Idli, he wants to stop. Now he stops there, but even if he stops there, the feeling of restlessness is still in the background of his mind. Right? That's exactly how it is. Even while he is eating the Tatte Idli, he still has the feeling of urgency to go to Mysore as soon as possible. Right? Now, just because he is eating the Tatte Idli doesn't mean to say the feeling of restlessness is gone. It is still there. It's in a subdued fashion. It's in the background. Right? Likewise, even though we feel good conditions at different spiritual points, it is this intense longing or restlessness towards the goal that takes us to the next point. If we become very happy and established in a particular condition in a particular point, we will lose our ability to move forward. We'll say, I'm happy here, I don't want to do anything. It's something like a person who's finished 10th standard, say, I'm happy after doing 10th standard, I don't want to go further. If you want to go, you go. I am not coming. So if the person themselves do not have the zeal to go to further education, you will not be in a position to guide them. So that's why our inclination towards the goal should be very strong. The more inclined we are towards the goal, the more we will be always aligned in the direction of the goal, and that restlessness actually takes us to the next point, where a further new condition opens up. So without that alignment to the goal and restlessness at the background, our movement actually slows down or sometimes stops. Though in fact we have to go nowhere, everything being close at hand, yet we have to arrive at the final state definitely. So going here means going within inside us, not going somewhere else. So we sit and go inside, that's all. If we get a good guide who pulls out the inner poison, then the nectar alone remains. By self-effort, sometimes people do proceed up to a certain distance as well, but definitely they take a very long time, and the danger of being caught within the whirls persists throughout. In the same way, there are numerous subpoints, and at each of them, the state of merging and identicality repeats itself. ಇಲ್ಲಿ merging and identicality ಅಂತ ಹೇಳ್ತಾರೆ. ನಾನು ಮೂರ್ನಾಲ್ಕು ಪದ ಹೇಳ್ತೀನಿ. 4 words, please remember. When we enter into that state, it is called as salokyata. You enter a new point. Then you gradually start moving towards the center of the particular point. It is called as samipyata. Okay? Now, samipyata is what Babuji is now calling as identicality. Merger. In other words, you open up all the conditions and you start merging into it. That is samipyata. When you enter into that particular point, you have not opened the conditions as yet. You have just entered. It's like you enter the US for the first time, and it takes time for you to settle down there. So when you enter into the US for the first time, that is salokyata. You are in that loka. Then you have to stay there for some period of time to get to know how things are, to experience the things. That is samipyata. Now that is called as merging. Then after that, you become identical with the conditions of that particular point. That is called as sarupyata. Then the awareness of those conditions disappear. That is called as sayujjata. 4 stages. At every chakra, these 4 stages repeat. Okay? Salokyata, Samipyata, Sayujyata, Sarupyata, and Sayujyata. Sarupyata is the third stage. Okay. Now I may throw some light on the state of consciousness which blooms after the first subpoint. When we cross, so he's talking about what exactly happens after we actually reach the first point. I'll come back to it. We'll finish this paragraph, I'll come back. Now, when we cross this point, which is the first point, to breathe in the next, everything seems to be changed. When we get merged in it, a godly state begins to reign within, and when identicality is developed, we begin to feel a peculiar state reflecting a tinge of divinity prevailing all over the objects, animate and inanimate. So in the first point, when we become awakened to the divinity, what we feel is that everything around is also kind of having that tinge of divinity on it, whether it is animate or inanimate object. There is such an indescribable outburst of emotional feelings at this point, as often drives people who lack the support of a worthy guru of caliber to a state of ananda or ecstasy, avadhuta, which keeps them entangled in that forever, putting a permanent stop to that onward achievement. Now, let us ask those who boastfully profess to be enlightened ones or gnani, whether they have ever come across such a stage, which in fact is but the beginning of the first chapter of the knowledge book of knowledge. If they try to attain this stage by applying the force of thought, it will only be artificial and not true and genuine. So, first point nalli, ನಾವು ಸ್ವಲ್ಪ ಮಟ್ಟಿಗೆ ಬೆಳೆದ್ರೆ, if we go even little bit, what we experience it, lot of emotional outbursts with the thing that everything which is there in creation is covered with a tinge of divinity. A divine touch is there on all animate and inanimate objects. That is the feeling that we get. ಲೋಕ ಎಲ್ಲ ಬದಲಾವಣೆ ಆದಂಗೆ ಅನ್ಸುತ್ತೆ. We feel as if the entire world has changed. Like a person who is jaundiced or who wears a yellow spectacle will feel that everything in the world is yellow. Likewise, when we actually touch the divinity, we feel that everything around is also having that touch of divinity, because we have touched the divinity for the first time. Okay, so go ahead now, Nikhil.
Sir, e state of mind, no, not state of mind, this feeling of divinity in terms of all animate and inanimate things. Like, is it something that you feel for like 24/7 throughout,
No,
or is it?
no, you only feel it on and off, but you feel sufficiently to get a feeling that something has changed.
Okay.
It's never 24 hours, not to worry. You'll never be immersed in that. But it's just that this feeling now takes hold. It's almost like you don't know what is this divinity. You feel that something has changed, something is pulling you inside. So, in the initial few weeks or few months, once you get a taste of the divinity, you feel like meditating on and off multiple times. I've seen many people meditate on and off multiple times in the initial few weeks to few months. That is because they've got a taste of the divinity. And then when the taste of the divinity takes hold of their heart, need not be continuously, even on and off. Say, for example, after meditation for half an hour or for 15 minutes. When you look at around people who are there in the meditation hall, you feel everybody is having that tinge of divinity. That is because you have experienced that tinge of divinity inside. And when you go out to the ashram, when you look at all the trees and all the tables, the books, everything, you also feel that they also have some tinge of divinity. Now that is a reflection of your own condition. That is what happens. That's why I gave
But
the
you wouldn't. Correct, sir. But when you say that ashrama and nature alla andaga, you would feel this. But when you can't go and feel this in a slum, or you can't go and feel this in a very dirty place.
That depends on how much you are actually established in the condition. If you are established in the condition deeply, you will feel wherever you go. It doesn't matter where you are.
Hmm.
See, if it is something, ನಿಂಗೆ ಒಂಚೂರು ಗ್ಯಾಸ್ಟ್ರಿಕ್ ಇದೆ ಅಂತ ಇಟ್ಕೋ, ಅವಾಗ ತೆಗ್ ಬರುತ್ತೆ. ಸಿಕ್ಕಾಪಟ್ಟೆ ಗ್ಯಾಸ್ಟ್ರೈಟಿಸ್ ಆಯ್ತು ಅಂತಂದ್ರೆ 24 ಗಂಟೆ ತೆಗ್ ಬರುತ್ತೆ. ಒಂಚೂರು ಗ್ಯಾಸ್ಟ್ರಿಕ್ ಆಯ್ತು ಅಂತಂದ್ರೆ ಒಂದು ಮಾತ್ರೆ ಕೊಟ್ಟರೆ ಹೋಗುತ್ತೆ. ಸಿಕ್ಕಾಪಟ್ಟೆ ಗ್ಯಾಸ್ಟ್ರಿಕ್ ಆಯ್ತು ಅಂತಂದ್ರೆ ಇಂಜೆಕ್ಷನ್ ಕೊಡ್ಬೇಕಾದ್ರೆ ಹಾಸ್ಪಿಟ್ಲಿಗೆ ಅಡ್ಮಿಟ್ ಮಾಡ್ಬೇಕಾದ್ರೆ. ಅರ್ಥ ಆಯ್ತಾ? ಸೊ ಟಿಂಜ್ ಆಫ್ ಡಿವಿನಿಟಿ ಬಂದಾಗ ಸ್ವಲ್ಪನೇ ಇತ್ತು, ಸ್ವಲ್ಪನೇ ಪ್ರಮಾಣದಲ್ಲಿ ಅಂತಂದ್ರೆ ಸ್ವಲ್ಪ ಹೊತ್ತಿರುತ್ತೆ, ಸ್ವಲ್ಪ ಸನ್ನಿವೇಶದಲ್ಲಿ ಇರುತ್ತೆ. ಅದು ಇಂಟೆನ್ಸ್ ಆಗಿದ್ದಾಗ ಏನಾಗುತ್ತೆ, ತುಂಬಾ ಕಾಲ ಇರುತ್ತೆ, ಎಲ್ಲ ಸನ್ನಿವೇಶದಲ್ಲೂ ಇರುತ್ತೆ. So it depends on the depth at which the divinity is actually taking hold of your system. ಅರ್ಥ ಆಯ್ತಾ? So there are multiple gradations. He is only giving you a glimpse of it. This is what happens in the first point. That's all he is saying. Okay? And many people feel this is a very high state. And it is in this state that many people actually dance in bhajans. They start singing out loud bhajans. If you go to Mantralaya, you will see people dancing and singing songs. Now, even in the first point, when the initial first point is actually awakened to certain extent, not even full extent, just to certain extent, you will get all these emotional states where you start singing like or calling the name of the Lord out loud. ದೇವರ ಹೆಸರನ್ನು ಜೋರಾಗಿ ಹೇಳ್ಬೇಕು ಅಂತ ಅನ್ಸುತ್ತೆ, ಜೋರಾಗಿ ಭಜನೆ ಮಾಡಬೇಕು ಅಂತ ಅನ್ಸುತ್ತೆ, ಡ್ಯಾನ್ಸ್ ಆಡಬೇಕು ಅಂತ ಅನ್ಸುತ್ತೆ. ಇವೆಲ್ಲ ಅನ್ಸ್ಲಿಕ್ಕೆ ಶುರು ಆಗುತ್ತೆ ಮೊದಲನೇ ಪಾಯಿಂಟ್ ನಲ್ಲಿ, ಮೊದಲನೇ ಕಂಡೀಷನ್ ಅಲ್ಲೇ. ಅಂಡ್ ಪೀಪಲ್ ಥಿಂಕ್ ದಟ್ ದೇ ಆರ್ ವೆರಿ ಹೈಲಿ ಸ್ಪಿರಿಚುವಲಿ ಎಲಿವೇಟೆಡ್ ಅಂತ ಅನ್ಕೊಳ್ತಾರೆ ಜನ. ಯಾಕಂತಂದ್ರೆ ಜೋರ ಗಲಾಟೆ ಬೇರೆ ಮಾಡ್ತಿರ್ತಾರಲ್ಲ, ಜೋರ ಕಿರಿಸ್ತಾ ಇರ್ತಾರೆ, ಡ್ಯಾನ್ಸ್ ಆಡ್ತಾ ಇರ್ತಾರೆ, ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಡಬ್ಟೆ ಬೇರೆ ಬಾರಿಸ್ತಾ ಇರ್ತಾರೆ. ಓ, ಎಲ್ಲರ ಅಟೆನ್ಷನ್ ಇವ್ರ ಮೇಲೆ ಬೀಳುತ್ತೆ. ಓ, ಏನೋ ಮಹಾಜ್ಞಾನಿಗಳಪ್ಪ, ಏನೋ ಸಿಕ್ಕಾಪಟ್ಟೆ ದೊಡ್ಡ ಭಕ್ತರು ಅಂತ ಅನ್ಕೊಂಡು ಹೇಳ್ತಾರೆ. The more noise you make, the more bigger bhakta you are. That's how our people look at it. The noise is nothing to do with your bhakti. In fact, real bhakti, you become silent. ಮಾತೇ ಆಡಲ್ಲ, ಸೈಲೆಂಟ್ ಆಗಿರ್ತೀರ. Because talk itself will take you away from that state of bhakti. Why will you even talk? You will keep quiet. I think. So that is the state
Also,
of the true bhakti.
sir, one question, sir. In terms of when you said that when you enliven that condition and then you become identical to that condition, ಸಾರೂಪ್ಯತೆ and ಅದಾದ್ಮೇಲೆ the next set of states. Is it because now that we know it's not, there are like multiple sub points ಅಂತಾನು ಅಂತ ಮೆನ್ಷನ್ ಮಾಡಿದ್ರು ಅಲ್ಲ, ಬಾಬುಜಿ has mentioned that there are multiple sub points ಅಂತಾನು ಮೆನ್ಷನ್ ಮಾಡಿದ್ದಾರೆ. So multiple sub points ಅಂದಾಗ is it a linear path that you understand it, or is it like a varying path ಅಂತ? Because what is the level of, see, even in last book ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಕೂಡ there are like 13th point circles ಅಂತ ಕೊಟ್ಟಾಗ, so can we imagine that there are multiple sub layers in those 13 layers ಅಂತ ಹೇಳ್ಬೋದಾ ಅಂತ? But is it linear or how do we envision that ಅಂತ?
13 ಪಾಯಿಂಟ್ಸ್ ಇದೆ. 13 ಪಾಯಿಂಟ್ಸ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಎಷ್ಟೊಂದು ಮಲ್ಟಿಪಲ್ ಸಬ್ ಪಾಯಿಂಟ್ಸ್ ಇದೆ. ಒಂದು, ಗ್ರೋತ್ ಇಸ್ ನಾಟ್ ಲೀನಿಯರ್. ಈಗ ನಾನು ಇಫ್ ಐ ವರ್ ಟು ಆಸ್ಕ್ ಯು, ಹ್ಯಾಸ್ ಯುವರ್ ಎಜುಕೇಶನ್ ಇನ್ ಕಾಲೇಜ್ ಬೀನ್ ಲೀನಿಯರ್ ಅಂತ ಕೇಳಿದ್ರೆ ನೀನ್ ಲೀನಿಯರ್ ಅಂತ ಹೇಳ್ತೀಯ, ನಾನ್ ಲೀನಿಯರ್ ಅಂತ ಹೇಳ್ತೀಯ, ಏನ್ ಹೇಳ್ತೀಯ?
ನಾನ್ ಲೀನಿಯರ್, ಸೈಕ್ಲಿಕಲ್ ಅಂಡ್ ಇಟರೇಟಿವ್.
ಹೌದೋ ಇಲ್ಲ? ಇಟ್ ಈಸ್ ನಾನ್ ಲೀನಿಯರ್. ಇಟ್ ಕ್ಯಾನ್ ನೆವರ್ ಬಿ ಲೀನಿಯರ್. ಇಟ್ ಇಸ್ ನಾಟ್ ಲೈಕ್ ಯು ಆರ್ ಗೋಯಿಂಗ್ ಟು ಮಾಸ್ಟರ್ ದ ಫಸ್ಟ್ ಪಾಯಿಂಟ್ ಅಂಡ್ ದೆನ್ ಓನ್ಲಿ ಗೋ ಟು ದ ನೆಕ್ಸ್ಟ್ ಚಾಪ್ಟರ್. No, you read about the first chapter, you grasp certain aspects of the first chapter, then you move to the next chapter. Then you grasp some of the aspects of the second chapter, you move to the third chapter. It is quite possible that you don't grasp anything in the third chapter, but you will still move to the fourth chapter. But you will have ample opportunities to come up and down the book to actually master each of the chapter later on. So in other words, the meditation journey is also very dynamic. You will move up and down. You will move up and down between the points. You will also move up and down between the sub points. So meditation journey is dynamic and non-linear. It is not a linear journey. Okay.
So sometimes agadre you don't have to even remember those conditions antanu agutte. But if you are already part of that condition anta andre, so sometimes it is just that it can be a different directly going to that path irbodu sometimes during that meditation, or it can be step by step.
Correct. Okay. See, for example, ನೀ ಯಾವುದೋ ಒಂದು ಫಾರ್ಮುಲಾ ಆಲ್ರೆಡಿ ಕಲ್ತ್ಕೊಂಡಿದ್ಯಾ ಅಂತ ಇಟ್ಕೋ. ಆ ಫಾರ್ಮುಲಾದು ನೆಕ್ಸ್ಟ್ ಲೆವೆಲ್ ಎಕ್ಸಾಂಪಲ್ಸ್ ಲೆಕ್ಕಗಳು ಮಾಡಬೇಕು. ನೀ ಡೈರೆಕ್ಟ್ ಆಗಿ ಅಲ್ಲಿಗೆ ಹೋಗ್ತೀಯ, ಆಲ್ರೆಡಿ ನಿಂಗೆ ಫಾರ್ಮುಲಾ ಬರುತ್ತೆ. ಸೊ ಯು ಡೈರೆಕ್ಟ್ಲಿ ಗೋ ಟು ಸಾಲ್ವ್ ದ ಪ್ರಾಬ್ಲಮ್ಸ್. ಅದೇ ನಿನ್ ಫಾರ್ಮುಲಾನೇ ಬರಲಿಲ್ಲ ಅಂತ ಇಟ್ಕೋ. ಫಸ್ಟ್ ಯು ಲರ್ನ್ ಹೌ ಟು ಡಿರೈವ್ ದ ಫಾರ್ಮುಲಾ ಅಂಡ್ ದೆನ್ ಯು ಗೋ ಟು ಸಾಲ್ವ್ ದ ಪ್ರಾಬ್ಲಮ್ಸ್. ಕರೆಕ್ಟಾ? ಅದೇ ತರನೇ ಒಂದು ಕಂಡೀಷನ್ ಒಂದು ಪರ್ಟಿಕ್ಯುಲರ್ ಪಾಯಿಂಟ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಚೆನ್ನಾಗಿ ಅಭ್ಯಾಸ ಆಗಿದೆ, ನಿನಗೆ ಅನುಭವ ಆಗಿದೆ ಅಂತ ಇಟ್ಕೋ. ಮುಂದಿನ ಹಂತಕ್ಕೆ ಹೋಗ್ತೀಯ. ಮುಂದಿನ ಹಂತಕ್ಕೆ ಹೋದಾಗ ಮತ್ತೆ ವಾಪಸ್ಸು ಆ ಮುಂದಿನ ಹಂತದ ಕಂಡೀಷನ್ ಇದೆ ನೆಕ್ಸ್ಟ್ ಪಾಯಿಂಟ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ, ಅದರ ಅನುಭವ ತಗೊಂಡು ಮತ್ತೆ ವಾಪಸ್ ಈ ಕಂಡೀಷನ್ ಬಂದು ನೋಡ್ತಾ ಇದು ಹೇಗಿದೆ ಅಂತ. ಸೊ ಫಾರ್ ಎಕ್ಸಾಂಪಲ್ ಯು ಡೆವಲಪ್ ಅಕ್ಸೆಪ್ಟೆನ್ಸ್ ಇನ್ ದ ಫಸ್ಟ್ ಪಾಯಿಂಟ್ ಅಂತ ಇಟ್ಕೋ. ಫಸ್ಟ್ ಪಾಯಿಂಟ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಏನ್ ಡೆವಲಪ್ ಮಾಡ್ಕೊಳ್ತೀವಿ ಅಂತಂದ್ರೆ ಜಾಯ್ಫುಲ್ ಅಕ್ಸೆಪ್ಟೆನ್ಸ್ ಮಾಡ್ಕೊಳ್ತೀವಿ. ಬಟ್ ಅಕ್ಸೆಪ್ಟೆನ್ಸ್ ಬರುತ್ತೆ ನಿಮ್ಗೆ ಫಸ್ಟ್ ಪಾಯಿಂಟ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ. ಅದೇ ನೀವು ಸೆಕೆಂಡ್ ಪಾಯಿಂಟ್ ಹೋದಾಗ ಅಕ್ಸೆಪ್ಟೆನ್ಸ್ ಹಾಗೆ ಇರಲ್ಲ. ಸೆಕೆಂಡ್ ಪಾಯಿಂಟ್ಸ್ ನಲ್ಲಿ ಪೀಸ್ ಇಸ್ ದ ಮೇನ್ ಫೀಚರ್. ಸೊ ದ ಅಕ್ಸೆಪ್ಟೆನ್ಸ್ ನಾವು ಗೆಟ್ ದ ಕ್ವಾಲಿಟಿ ಆಫ್ ದ ಪೀಸ್. ಸೊ ಇಟ್ ಬಿಕಮ್ಸ್ ಎ ಪೀಸ್ಫುಲ್ ಅಕ್ಸೆಪ್ಟೆನ್ಸ್. ಮೊದಲನೇ ಪಾಯಿಂಟ್ ನಲ್ಲಿ ಜಾಯ್ಫುಲ್ ಅಕ್ಸೆಪ್ಟೆನ್ಸ್ ಇತ್ತು. ಎರಡನೇ ಪಾಯಿಂಟ್ ಹೋದಾಗ ಅಕ್ಸೆಪ್ಟೆನ್ಸ್ ಇದೆ, ಬಟ್ ಇಟ್ಸ್ ನೌ ಬಿಕಮ್ ಪೀಸ್ಫುಲ್ ಅಕ್ಸೆಪ್ಟೆನ್ಸ್. ಅದೇ ಮೂರನೇ ಪಾಯಿಂಟ್ ಹೋಯ್ತು ಅಂತಂದ್ರೆ ಇಟ್ ಬಿಕಮ್ಸ್ ಎ ಲವಿಂಗ್ ಅಕ್ಸೆಪ್ಟೆನ್ಸ್. ಇನ್ ಅದರ್ ವರ್ಡ್ಸ್ acceptance is the same quality, but the other quality which is backing that acceptance will keep changing. ಅರ್ಥ ಆಯ್ತಾ? So that happens to every condition, that happens in every point. Now
So the only way for you to understand.
ಒಂದು ನಿಮಿಷ.
Sorry.
ಥರ್ಡ್ ಪಾಯಿಂಟ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಲವ್ ಬರುತ್ತೆ ಅಂತ ಇಟ್ಕೋ. ಲವ್ ಮ್ಯಾನಿಫೆಸ್ಟ್ ಆಗ್ಲಿಕ್ಕೆ ಬರ್ಬೇಕಾದ್ರೆ ಮೊದಲು ಧೈರ್ಯ ಇರಲ್ಲ ಲವ್ನ ಎಕ್ಸ್ಪ್ರೆಸ್ ಮಾಡ್ಲಿಕ್ಕೆ. ಅದೇ ಫೋರ್ತ್ ಪಾಯಿಂಟ್ ಬಂದಾಗ ಇಟ್ ಇಸ್ ಬ್ಯಾಕ್ಡ್ ಬೈ ಕರೇಜ್ ಅಂಡ್ ಕಾನ್ಫಿಡೆನ್ಸ್. ಸೊ ಯು ಆರ್ ಇನ್ ಎ ಬೆಟರ್ ಪೊಸಿಷನ್ ಟು ಎಕ್ಸ್ಪ್ರೆಸ್ ಯುವರ್ ಲವ್ ವಿತ್ ಕಾನ್ಫಿಡೆನ್ಸ್ ಅಂಡ್ ಕರೇಜ್. ಸೊ ದಟ್ಸ್ ದ ಡಿಫರೆನ್ಸ್ ಬಿಟ್ವೀನ್ ಥರ್ಡ್ ಪಾಯಿಂಟ್ ಲವ್ ವರ್ಸಸ್ ಫೋರ್ತ್ ಪಾಯಿಂಟ್ ಲವ್. ಸರಿನಾ? ನೀವು ಹೇಳ್ತಿದ್ದೆ ಕೇಳಿ.
ಸೊ ಅದೇ ಸರ್, ಹಾಗಾದ್ರೆ ಪ್ರತಿ ಸಲನೂ ಒಂಥರ ಆ ಫೀಲಿಂಗ್ಸ್ ಏನ್ ಬರ್ತಿದೆ ಅನ್ನೋದ್ರ ಮೇಲೆ ಯು ಹ್ಯಾವ್ ಟು ವರ್ಕ್ ಅಪಾನ್ ವಾಟ್ ಪಾಯಿಂಟ್ ಅಂತ.
ಅದಕ್ಕೆ ನಾನು ಯಾವಾಗಲೂ ಧ್ಯಾನ ಆದ್ಮೇಲೆ ಫೀಲಿಂಗ್ ಬಗ್ಗೆ ಜಾಸ್ತಿ ಹೇಳಿ ಅಂತ ಒತ್ತು ಕೇಳೋದು. ದಟ್ಸ್ ವೈ ಎಂಫಸೈಸ್ ಆನ್ ಫೀಲಿಂಗ್ಸ್.
ಸರ್ ಸಾರಿ ಅಗೇನ್, ಬಟ್ ಎಷ್ಟೊಂದ್ಸಲ ಏನಾಗುತ್ತೆ ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಧ್ಯಾನ ಆದ್ಮೇಲೆ ಫೀಲಿಂಗ್ಸ್ಗಿಂತ ಧ್ಯಾನ ಆದ್ಮೇಲೆ ಸ್ವಲ್ಪ ದ ಟೈಮ್ ದಟ್ ವಿ ಸ್ಪೆಂಟ್ ಇನ್ ಜನರಲ್, ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಸರ್ಟನ್ ಫೀಲಿಂಗ್ಸ್ ಯಾವಾಗ ಆಗೋದು ಜಾಸ್ತಿ ಅಲ್ಲೂ ಕೂಡ ಅಬ್ಸರ್ವ್ ಮಾಡ್ಬೋದಲ್ಲ ದೋಸ್ ಕಂಡೀಷನ್ಸ್.
ಎಲ್ಲ ಇನ್ಫ್ಯಾಕ್ಟ್ ಧ್ಯಾನ ಮುಗಿಸ್ಕೊಂಡು ಹೋದ್ಮೇಲೆ ವಾರ ಪೂರ್ತಿ ಅಬ್ಸರ್ವ್ ಮಾಡ್ಕೊಂಡು ಬಂದು ನೆಕ್ಸ್ಟ್ ಟೈಮ್ ಧ್ಯಾನಕ್ಕೆ ಬಂದಾಗ ಆ ವಾರದಲ್ಲಿ ಏನ್ ಅಬ್ಸರ್ವ್ ಮಾಡಿದಿರಾ ಅಂತ ಹೇಳಬೇಕು. ದಾಟ್ ಈಸ್ ದ ರಿಯಲ್ ರಿಪೋರ್ಟ್. ಬರೀ ಧ್ಯಾನದಲ್ಲಿ ಏನಾಯ್ತು ರಿಪೋರ್ಟ್ ಮಾಡೋದಲ್ಲ. ಆ ಧ್ಯಾನ ಮುಗಿಸ್ಕೊಂಡು ಹೋಗಿ ನೆಕ್ಸ್ಟ್ ಟೈಮ್ ಧ್ಯಾನಕ್ಕೆ ಬರೋವರೆಗೂ ಕೂಡ ಏನ್ ಅಬ್ಸರ್ವ್ ಮಾಡಿದಿರಾ ಅದನ್ನ ರಿಪೋರ್ಟ್ ಕೊಡ್ಬೇಕು. ಸೊ ವೀಕ್ಲಿ ರಿಪೋರ್ಟ್ ಕಳಿಸ್ಬೇಕು.
ಬಿಕಾಸ್ ಪರ್ಸನಲಿ ಮೋಸ್ಟ್ ಟೈಮ್ಸ್ ಕರೆಕ್ಟ್. ಸೊ ಪರ್ಸನಲಿ ನನಗೆ ಮೋಸ್ಟ್ ಟೈಮ್ಸ್ ಐ ಆಮ್ ಏಬಲ್ ಟು ಅಬ್ಸರ್ವ್ ಇಟ್ ಆಫ್ಟರ್ ಮೆಡಿಟೇಷನ್ ರಾದರ್ ದನ್ ಜಸ್ಟ್ ಆಫ್ಟರ್ ಮೆಡಿಟೇಷನ್ಗಿಂತ ಆ ವೀಕಲ್ಲಿ ಐ ಆಮ್ ಏಬಲ್ ಟು ಅಬ್ಸರ್ವ್ ಅ ಲಾಟ್ ಆಫ್ ಥಿಂಗ್ಸ್ ಅಂತ ಅನ್ಸುತ್ತೆ.
That is exactly what I am saying. Many conditions manifest in between meditation, not during meditation. Many conditions manifest outside meditation. ಮೆಡಿಟೇಷನ್ ಏನಾಗಿರುತ್ತೆ, ಬರೀ ಸೀಡ್ ಹಾಕಿರ್ತೀವಿ, ಅದು ಪೂರ್ತಿ ಅರಳೋದು ಕಾಲಕ್ರಮೇಣದಲ್ಲಿ. ಸೊ ನೀನು ಊಟ ಮಾಡ್ಬೇಕಾದ್ರೆ ಸ್ವಲ್ಪ ಊಟ ಹೊಟ್ಟೆಗೆ ಹಾಕಿರ್ತೀಯ, ತಕ್ಷಣ ಎನರ್ಜಿ ಬರಲ್ಲ ನಿಂಗೆ. ಆ ಊಟದ ಪರಿಣಾಮ ಕೆಲವು ಹೊತ್ತಾದ್ಮೇಲೆ ಆಕ್ಚುಲಿ ಎನರ್ಜಿನಲ್ಲಿ ವ್ಯಕ್ತ ಆಗುತ್ತೆ. ಅದೇ ತರನೇ ಮೆಡಿಟೇಷನ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಸೀಡ್ ಹಾಕಿರ್ತೀವಿ ಕಂಡೀಷನ್ದು, ಅದ್ರ ಪೂರ್ತಿ ಕಂಡೀಷನ್ದು ಪರಿಣಾಮ ನಿಜ ಜೀವನದಲ್ಲಿ 1 ದಿವಸನೋ 2 ದಿವಸನೋ 3 ದಿವಸನೋ ಕೆಲವು ಗಂಟೆಗಳು ಆದ್ಮೇಲೆ ನಿಂಗೆ ಗೊತ್ತಾಗುತ್ತೆ. ಅರ್ಥ ಆಯ್ತಾ? ಅದಕ್ಕೆ ಯು ಹ್ಯಾವ್ ಟು ಅಬ್ಸರ್ವ್ ಆಲ್ ದ ಟೈಮ್ ಆನ್ ಯುವರ್ ಹಾರ್ಟ್ ಇನ್ ಬಿಟ್ವೀನ್ ದ 2 ಸೆಷನ್ಸ್ ಆಫ್ ಮೆಡಿಟೇಷನ್. ಸರಿನಾ?
ಸರಿ
ಪ್ರವೀಣ್, ಇನ್ನೇನಿದೆಯಾ ಪ್ರಶ್ನೆ?
ಸರ್ ಆಕ್ಚುಲಿ ಇವಾಗ ಕಂಡೀಷನ್ಸೇ ಗೊತ್ತಾಗಲ್ಲ ಕೆಲವ್ರಿಗೆ ಅಂತಲ್ಲ, ಸೊ ಅವ್ರಿಗೆ ಹೇಗೆ ಎವಾಲ್ವ್ ಆಗ್ತಾರೆ? ಲೈಕ್
ಕಂಡೀಷನ್ಸ್ ಗೊತ್ತಾಗಲ್ಲ ಅಂತ ಯಾರಿಗೂ ಗೊತ್ತಾಗದೆ ಇರ್ಲಿಕ್ಕೆ ಸಾಧ್ಯನೇ ಇಲ್ಲ.
ಅಲ್ಲ, ಇನ್ ಕೇಸ್ ಆತರ ಸೊ ಇಫ್ ಎವಾಲ್ವ್
ಕೇಳಿ ಕತೆ ನೀನ್ ಏನಂದ್ರೆ ಕಣ್ಣಿದೆ ನೋಡಕ್ ಬರಲ್ಲ ಅಂದಂಗೆ ಕಾಯ್ತು ಕತೆ. ನಿನ್ ಕತೆ ಯಾರಾದ್ರೂ ಮನುಷ್ಯ ಕಣ್ಣು ಚೆನ್ನಾಗಿದ್ದು ನೋಡಕ್ ಬರಲ್ಲ ಅಂತ ಗಲಾಟೆ ಮಾಡ್ತಾನೆ ಲೈಫಲ್ಲಿ? ಇಸ್ ಇಟ್ ಎವರ್ ಪಾಸಿಬಲ್? ಹ್ಯಾವ್ ಯು ಎವರ್ ಸೀನ್ ಎ ಪರ್ಸನ್ who has normal eyes but who claims that he cannot see? ಆ ಥರದ್ದು ಏನಾದ್ರು ನೋಡಿದ್ರೆ ನೀವು ಅವ್ರು ಮೆಂಟಲಿ ಇಲ್ಲ ಅಂತ ಹೇಳ್ತೀರಾ. ಮೆಂಟಲಿ ಸೌಂಡ್ ಆಗಿದ್ರೆ ಕಣ್ಣಿದ್ರೆ ಕಣ್ ಕೆಲಸ ಮಾಡ್ತಿದ್ರೆ ನೋಡೇ ನೋಡ್ತಾರೆ. ಕರೆಕ್ಟಾ? ಹಾಗಾದ್ರೆ ಧ್ಯಾನದಲ್ಲಿ ಹಾರ್ಟ್ ಇದ್ರೆ ಹಾರ್ಟ್ ಫೀಲ್ ಮಾಡೇ ಮಾಡುತ್ತೆ. ಫೀಲ್
ಓಕೆ
ಮಾಡದೇ ಇರ್ಲಿಕ್ಕೆ ಸಾಧ್ಯವೇ ಇಲ್ಲ ಹಾರ್ಟ್. ಸರಿನಾ? ಫೀಲಿಂಗ್ ಇಂಟೆನ್ಸಿಟಿ, ರೇಂಜು, ಡೈವರ್ಸಿಟಿ ಅದು ವ್ಯತ್ಯಾಸ ಆಗ್ತದೆ. ಆದ್ರೆ ಹಾರ್ಟ್ ಇರೋವರೆಗೂ ಕೂಡ ಫೀಲ್ ಮಾಡೇ ಮಾಡುತ್ತೆ.
ಓಕೆ
ಬೇಕಾದ್ರೆ ನಿಖಿಲ್ನ ಕೇಳು, ಬೇಕಾದ್ರೆ ನಮ್ಮ ಪ್ರವೀಣ್ನ ಕೇಳು, ಗ್ಯಾರಂಟಿ ಫೀಲ್ ಆಗುತ್ತೆ. ಅನುಭವದಿಂದ ಅವ್ರು ಹೇಳ್ತಾರೆ. ಸರಿನಾ? Heart is the
But
organ of feeling. Its only job is feeling. So as long as your heart is there, you will feel. Now, like these two people, if you have given your heart to somebody else, you might not feel. Then it's a different issue altogether. ಆಯ್ತಾ? ಅವಾಗ ನಾನು ಬಂದ್ರೆ ನಾನು ಏನ್
ಬಟ್
ಹೇಳ್ತೀನಿ,
ಬಟ್ ಏನಂದ್ರೆ
ಓ
ಐಡೆಂಟಿಫೈ
ವಾಪಸ್ ಹಾರ್ಟ್ ಇಸ್ಕೊಂಬನ್ನಿ ಅಂತ ಹೇಳ್ತೀನಿ.
ಬಟ್ ಓನ್ಲಿ ಥಿಂಗ್ ಇಸ್ ಅವ್ರು ಐಡೆಂಟಿಫೈ ಮಾಡ್ಬೇಕಷ್ಟೇ. ಸೊ ದಟ್ ಈಸ್
ಹಾರ್ಟ್ ಫೀಲ್ ಮಾಡೇ ಮಾಡುತ್ತೆ. ಯಾಕೆ ಅವ್ರಿಗೆ ಗೊತ್ತಾಗಲ್ಲ ಅಂತಂದ್ರೆ ದೇ ಡೋಂಟ್ ಪೇ ಅಟೆನ್ಷನ್.
ಕರೆಕ್ಟ್.
So their job is to learn to pay attention. If they learn to pay attention and be established in the state of awareness in the heart, definitely they'll feel. It is virtually impossible for people not to feel. So take this notion away. Everybody can be taught how to feel.
ಸೆನ್ಸಿಟಿವಿಟಿ ಬೆಳೆಸ್ಕೊಂಡಂಗೆ ಫೀಲ್ ಆಗ ಜಾಸ್ತಿ ಗೊತ್ತಾಗುತ್ತೆ.
ನೀವು ಹಾರ್ಟ್ ಕಡೆ ಗಮನ ಕೊಡ್ತಿದ್ದಂಗೆ ಜಾಸ್ತಿ ಫೀಲ್ ಆಗೋದು ಗೊತ್ತಾಗುತ್ತೆ. ಅರ್ಥ ಆಯ್ತಾ? ಈಗ ಯಾರನ್ನೋ ಒಬ್ರು ಪ್ರೀತಿ ಮಾಡಿದಾಗ ಅವ್ರ ಜೊತೆ ಇದ್ದಾಗ ಹಾರ್ಟ್ ಡಬ 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 ಅಂತ ಹೊಡ್ಕೊಳ್ತಿರುತ್ತೆ. ಆಯ್ತಾ? ಅವ್ರ ಮೇಲೆ ಪ್ರೀತಿ ಜಾಸ್ತಿ ಆದಾಗ ಅವ್ರು ಇಲ್ಲದೆ ಇದ್ರು ಕೂಡ ಹಾರ್ಟ್ ಡಬ ಡಬ ಅಂತ ಅವ್ರು ನೆನಪಿಸ್ಕೊಂಡ್ರೆ ಡಬ ಡಬ ಅಂತ ಹೊಡ್ಕೊಳ್ಳಿಕ್ಕೆ ಶುರು ಮಾಡುತ್ತೆ. ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಇಟ್ ಈಸ್ ನಾಟ್ ನೆಸೆಸರಿ ದಟ್ ದೇ ಹ್ಯಾವ್ ಟು ಬಿ ಇನ್ ಫ್ರಂಟ್ ಆಫ್ ಯು. ಜಸ್ಟ್ ರಿಮೆಂಬರಿಂಗ್ ದೆಮ್ ಮೇಕ್ಸ್ ಯುವರ್ ಹಾರ್ಟ್ ರೆಸ್ಪಾಂಡ್ ಟು ಇಟ್. ಅರ್ಥ ಆಗ್ತಿದೆಯಾ? ಸೊ ದಿಸ್ ಇಸ್ ದ ಬೆಸ್ಟ್ ಥಿಂಗ್ ಎಕ್ಸಾಂಪಲ್ ಟು ಗಿವ್. ಗೊತ್ತಾಯ್ತಾ? ಸೊ ವರುಣ್ಗೆ ಎಕ್ಸಾಂಪಲ್ ಹೇಳೋದಾಯ್ತು ಅಂತಂದ್ರೆ ಮದುವೆ ಆದ್ಮೇಲೆ ಫಸ್ಟ್ ಫ್ಯೂ ಮಂತ್ಸ್ ಜ್ಞಾಪಕ ಇಟ್ಕೊ. ಫಸ್ಟ್ ಫ್ಯೂ ಮಂತ್ಸ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಏನಾಗುತ್ತೆ, ಅವ್ರು ಇನ್ನೂ ಬರ್ತಾ ಇರ್ತಾರೆ, ಅವ್ರು ಆ ಕಡೆಯಿಂದ ಬರ್ತಾ ಇದಾರೆ ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಇನ್ನು ಹಾರ್ಟ್ ಡೌ ಡೌ ಅಂತ ಹೊಡ್ಕೊಳ್ಳುತ್ತೆ. ಒಂದು 6 ತಿಂಗಳು 1 ವರ್ಷ ಆದ್ಮೇಲೆ ಅದು ನಿಂತೋಗುತ್ತೆ, ಅದು ಬೇರೆ ವಿಚಾರ. ಬಿಕಾಸ್ ಯು ವಿಲ್ ಗೆಟ್ ಯೂಸ್ ಟು ಇಟ್. ಬಟ್ ಬರೋವರೆಗೂ ಕೂಡ ಡೌ ಡೌ ಅಂತ ಹೊಡ್ಕೊಳ್ತಾ ಇರುತ್ತೆ. ಆಯ್ತಾ? ಸೊ ನಮ್ ಜಿಕೆಗೆ ಹಾರ್ಟ್ ಟಗ ಟಗ ಅಂತ ಹೊಡ್ಕೊಳ್ತಾ ಇದೆ ನೋಡಿ, ಒಂದು ಐಸ್ ಕ್ರೀಮ್ ಹಾಕಿದ್ದಾನೆ.
ಐಸ್ ಕ್ರೀಮ್ ಅಲ್ಲ, ಪಾರ್ಟಿ ಸಿಂಬಲ್.
ಆಯ್ತಾಯ್ತು, ಗೊತ್ತಾಯ್ತು. The point I'm trying to make is, see, we all have a innate ability to feel. That is the point I'm trying to make. Everyone has a ability to feel. It is just that we have to bring the attention of the Abhyasis mind on their heart and get them to learn to feel. That is the job of the perceptor. ಈಗ ನೀವೆಲ್ಲ ಎಕ್ಸಾಮ್ ಕೊಡ್ತಿರೋದ್ರಿಂದ ಅದಕ್ಕೆ ನಾನು ನಿಮಗೆ ಬಿಡಿಸಿ ಬಿಡಿಸಿ ಹೇಳ್ತಿದ್ದೀನಿ. ಇದನ್ನ ನೀವು ಮಾಡಬೇಕು, ಎಲ್ಲ ಅಭ್ಯಾಸಿಗೂ ಮಾಡಬೇಕು. ಎಲ್ಲ ಅಭ್ಯಾಸಿಗೂ ಮಾಡಿದಾಗ ದೇ ವಿಲ್ ಆಕ್ಚುಲಿ ಕಮ್ ಟು ಯು ಮೋರ್ ರೆಗ್ಯುಲರ್ಲಿ. ಓ ನಾವೇನೋ ಕಲ್ತ್ಕೊಳ್ತಾ ಇದೀವಿ, ವಿ ಆರ್ ಏಬಲ್ ಟು ಫೀಲ್ ಸೋ ಮೆನಿ ಥಿಂಗ್ಸ್ ಅಂತ ಬರ್ತಾವೆ. ಆಯ್ತಾ? ಈಗ ನೋಡಿ, ಲಾಸ್ಟ್ ವೀಕ್ ಮೊನ್ನೆ ಬಂದಾಗ ಪ್ರವೀಣ್ ಐ ಆಮ್ ಡೆವಲಪಿಂಗ್ ಕ್ಲಾರಿಟಿ ಇನ್ ಲೈಫ್ ಅಂತ ಹೇಳಿದ್ರು ಸ್ವಲ್ಪ. ನಾವು ವೆರ್ ಡಿಡ್ ಯು ಅಬ್ಸರ್ವ್ ಕ್ಲಾರಿಟಿ? ನಾಟ್ ಡ್ಯೂರಿಂಗ್ ಮೆಡಿಟೇಷನ್, but you observe clarity in between sessions of meditation in your real life. So there are many conditions that manifest in between sessions of meditation, not during meditation. That's why we always have to keep an eye on the heart.
ಈ ವೀಕ್ದು ಹೇಳ್ಬೇಕು ನಿಮಗೆ.
ಏನ್ರಿ?
ಈ ವೀಕ್ದು ಹೇಳ್ಬೇಕು.
Exactly. That's how it will be. Week on week you will go on developing.
It is different actually. ಲಾಸ್ಟ್ ವೀಕ್ and ಈ ವೀಕ್ ತುಂಬಾ ಡಿಫ್ರೆನ್ಸ್ ಇದೆ.
That is the beauty of meditation. See, you will learn the real beauty of meditation when you observe your heart through the course of the week. So many things happen between the sessions of meditation. It not only then when you are in the meditation session, between the sessions of meditation, you actually allow the unfolding of the work of the meditation in real life. ಅದಕ್ಕೆ ನಾನು ನನ್ನ ಹತ್ರ ಯಾರೆಲ್ಲ ಮೆಡಿಟೇಷನ್ ಬರ್ತಿದ್ರಲ್ಲ, ನಾನು ಮುಂಚೆಲ್ಲ ತುಂಬಾ ಇನ್ಸಿಸ್ಟ್ ಮಾಡ್ತಿದ್ದೀನಿ, ನಿಮಗೆಲ್ಲ ಬಿಟ್ಟಿದ್ದೀನಿ, ಸ್ವಲ್ಪ ಲೀನಿಯಂಟ್ ಬಿಟ್ಟಿದ್ದೀನಿ. ಯಾಕಂತಂದ್ರೆ ನೀವೆಲ್ಲ ಬಂದು ನನಗೆ ಸರ್ ನಾ ಹಾರ್ಟ್ ಅವ್ರಿಗೆ ಕೊಟ್ಬಿಟ್ಟಿದ್ದೀನಿ, ಇವ್ರಿಗೆ ಕೊಟ್ಬಿಟ್ಟಿದ್ದೀನಿ ಗಲಾಟೆ ಮಾಡ್ತೀರಾ, ಅದಕ್ಕೆ ಸ್ವಲ್ಪ ಲೀನಿಯಂಟ್ ಬಿಟ್ಟಿದ್ದೀನಿ. ಇಲ್ಲದೇ ಇದ್ರೆ ನಾ ಮುಂಚೆ ಯಾರೇ ಬಂದ್ರು ನನ್ನ ಹತ್ರ ಧ್ಯಾನಕ್ಕೆ, ಐ ಯೂಸ್ ಟು ಇನ್ಸಿಸ್ಟ್ ದಟ್ ಬಿಫೋರ್ ಯು ಕಮ್ ಟು ದ ಸೆಷನ್, ನೆಕ್ಸ್ಟ್ ಸೆಷನ್, ಪ್ಲೀಸ್ ಸೆಂಡ್ ಮಿ ವೀಕ್ಲಿ ರಿಪೋರ್ಟ್. ಸೊ ಮಾರನೇ ಸಲ ಬೆಳಗ್ಗೆ ಬರ್ತೀರಾ ಅಂದ್ರೆ ರಾತ್ರಿ ನನಗೆ ವೀಕ್ಲಿ ರಿಪೋರ್ಟ್ ಕಳಿಸ್ಬೇಕು, ಏನ್ ಅಬ್ಸರ್ವ್ ಮಾಡಿದ್ರೆ ಡ್ಯೂರಿಂಗ್ ದ ಕೋರ್ಸ್ ಆಫ್ ದ ವೀಕ್. ದಾಟ್ ಈಸ್ ಹೌ ಯು ಡೆವಲಪ್ ಸೆನ್ಸಿಟಿವಿಟಿ. ಅರ್ಥ ಆಯ್ತಾ? ಈಗ ಮಾತಾಡ್ತಾ ಇದ್ದಾರೆ, ಎಲ್ಲೂ ತಲೆ ಆಡಿಸ್ತಾ ಇದ್ದಾರೆ, ಎಷ್ಟು ಜನ ಏನ್ ಮಾಡ್ತೀರಾ ಅಂತ ನೋಡೋಣ, ಆಯ್ತಾ? ಇಲ್ಲ ಈಗಲೂ ಅದೇ ಕತೆ ಹೇಳ್ತಾರೆ ಅಂತ ನಂಗೆ ಗೊತ್ತಿದೆ, ಹೇಳಕ್ಕಾಗಲ್ಲ.
ಕಳಿಸ್ತೀವಿ ವೀಕ್ಲಿ.
ಅಲ್ಲ, ನೀವು ಈ ಪಾಯಿಂಟ್ ಹೇಳಿದ್ರೆ ಸರ್ ಹಾರ್ಟ್ ನನ್ನ ಹತ್ರ ಇದ್ರೆ ನಾನು ಅಬ್ಸರ್ವ್ ಮಾಡಿ ಹೇಳ್ಬೋದು ನಿಮಗೆ. ಹಾರ್ಟ್ ನನ್ನ ಹತ್ರ ಇದ್ದಲ್ಲಿ ನಾನು ಏನು ಅಬ್ಸರ್ವ್ ಮಾಡಲಿ, ಏನು ಫೀಲ್ ಮಾಡಿ ಅಂತ ಹೇಳಿದ್ರೆ ಐ ಹ್ಯಾವ್ ಟು ಅಕ್ಸೆಪ್ಟ್ ಇಟ್. ಐ ಕೆನಾಟ್ ಸೇ ನೋ, ಅಲ್ವಾ?
ಇಟ್ ಎಕ್ಸ್ಚೇಂಜ್ ಆಗಿರುತ್ತಲ್ಲ, ಆ ಹಾರ್ಟ್ ಅಬ್ಸರ್ವ್ ಮಾಡ್ಬೇಕು.
ಓಹ್, ನೀನ್ ಮುಂದಿನ ಲೆವೆಲ್ ಹೊಟ್ಟೋಗಿದ್ಯಾ ಬಿಡ. ಹಾರ್ಟ್ ನ ನೀವು ಕೊಡೋದಿಲ್ದಿರ ಎಕ್ಸ್ಚೇಂಜ್ ಮಾಡ್ಕೊಂಡಿದ್ಯಾ ಅಂತ ಹೇಳ್ತಾ ಇದ್ದೆ. ನೋಡಪ್ಪ ನಿಖಿಲ್ ಎಕ್ಸ್ಚೇಂಜ್ ಆಗಿದ್ಯಾ ಅಂತ. ಆಯ್ತಾ? ಗೋಪಾಲ್ ಕೃಷ್ಣ ನೋಡ್ಕೊಳ್ಳಿ ಯಾವ್ದಾದ್ರು ಎಕ್ಸ್ಚೇಂಜ್ ಆಗಿದೆ ಹಾರ್ಟ್ ಅಂತ. ಯಾರ ಹಾರ್ಟ್ ಬಂದು ಸೇರ್ಕೊಂಡಿದೆ ನೋಡಿ ನಿನ್ನ ಹಾರ್ಟ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ. ಸರಿನಾ? ಸರಿ, ಇದೊಂದು 2 ಪೇಜ್ ಇದೆ, ಇದನ್ನ ಮುಗಿಸೋಣ ಆಯ್ತಾ? ಬಟ್ ಎನಿವೇಸ್, ದೀಸ್ ಆರ್ ಆಲ್ ಇಂಟ್ರೆಸ್ಟಿಂಗ್ ಥಿಂಗ್ಸ್. The real effect or the work of the meditation is observed between 2 sessions. Please keep that in mind. Sarina? Now we arrive at the next subnot. The consciousness of the condition prevailing there is the second stage of knowledge. When by dint of our love and devotion we secure our approach to it, we find that the condition now becomes lighter and finer than the previous one. Now this is something that happens with every chakra. One point in the next point the conditions become lighter and finer. So second and the third hodre, it becomes even more lighter and finer. Third and fourth hodre, same thing, lighter and finer and subtler. What is it that we find at this second knot? It is a state that presents to our view the presence of godly state prevailing all around and pervading everything. It reflects the tinge of plainness and simplicity. ಎಲ್ಲ ಕಡೆ ಪ್ಲೇನ್ ಆಗಿದೆ, ಎಲ್ಲಾನು ಸಿಂಪಲ್ ಆಗಿದೆ ಜೀವನದಲ್ಲಿ ಅಂತ ಅನಿಸುತ್ತೆ. Which shows that we have gone into it further. At every point, the process of merging and identicality repeats itself, the later being the final stage of knowledge or gnana of the point, identicality. When we have gone through it sufficiently and have experienced everything fully, the next knot then comes to our view. So, ಒಂದು ಪಾಯಿಂಟ್ ನಲ್ಲಿ ನಾವು 3 ಆದಾಗ ಸಾಲೋಕ್ಯತ, ಸಾಮೀಪ್ಯತ, ಸಾರೂಪ್ಯತ ಪಡ್ಕೊಂಡ್ಮೇಲೆ ಗುರುಗಳು ನಮ್ಮನ್ನ ಏನ್ ಮಾಡ್ತಾರೆ, he pushes us to the next point. We repeat the same process again in the next point. So till the 13th point we do the same thing all over again and again and again. ಅದಕ್ಕೆ ಮೆಡಿಟೇಷನ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಎಷ್ಟೊಂದು ಸೆಷನ್ಸ್ ರಿಪಿಟೇಷನ್ ಅಂತ ಅನಿಸುತ್ತೆ, ಬಟ್ ಆಕ್ಚುಲಿ ರಿಪಿಟೇಷನ್ ಆಗಲ್ಲ. No 2 sessions of meditation ever repeat itself. It's always different at certain level. We might not be able to notice it, the difference, but no 2 sessions of meditations are alike. Please understand this. Every session of meditation is unique. ನೀವು ಮನೆ ಅಡುಗೆ ಮಾಡಿ ನೋಡು, ದಿನ ಅಡುಗೆ ರುಚಿ ಬೇರೆ ತರ ಇರುತ್ತೆ. 2 ದಿವಸದ ಅಡುಗೆ ರುಚಿ ಒಂದೇ ಆಗ್ಲಿಕ್ಕೆ ಸಾಧ್ಯವೇ ಇಲ್ಲ. ಕರೆಕ್ಟಾ? ಸೊ 100 ಜನ ನೋಡು, 100 ಜನ ನೋಡಿದ್ರೆ 100 ಜನ 100 ರೀತಿಯಲ್ಲಿ ಸುಂದರವಾಗಿದ್ದಾರೆ ಅಂತ ನೀನು ಕಾಣ್ತಾರೆ. ಎಲ್ಲರೂ ಒಂದೇ ತರ ಸುಂದರವಾಗಿದ್ದಾರೆ ಅಂತ ನೀನು ಕಾಣೋಲ್ಲ. ಅಲ್ವೇನೋ ನಿಖಿಲ್? ನಿಖಿಲ್ ಉತ್ತರ ಹೇಳಲ್ಲಂತೆ, ನಾಚಿಕೆ ಪಟ್ಕೊಳ್ತಾ ಇದ್ದಾನೆ. So that's exactly how it is. You will not see the same level of beauty in everyone. The level of beauty that you see in everyone will be different each time. And even if you see the same person again and again it differs. ಅಲ್ವಾ? ಅದನ್ನ ನಾವು ಕೈ ಇಟ್ಕೊಡ್ರಿ. ಅದೇ ತರನೇ ನಮ್ಮ ಕಂಡೀಷನ್ ಅದೇ ತರನೇ ಚೇಂಜ್ ಆಗ್ತಾ ಇರುತ್ತೆ. ಈಗ ಲಯಾವಸ್ಥದ ಬಗ್ಗೆ ಬರೀತಾರೆ. ಏನ್ ಲಯಾವಸ್ಥೆ ಅಂತ? ಸ್ಟೇಟ್ ಆಫ್ ಮರ್ಜಿಂಗ್. Merging really reflects to a state of settledness in the condition at a certain point or not arrived at by the abhyasi. State of settledness na merging anta karitare. The abhyasi now has settled in that particular state anta. ಅದಕ್ಕೆ ಈಗ US ಗೆ ಹೋಗ್ತೀರಾ, US ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಒಂದು 2-3 ವರ್ಷ ಸೆಟಲ್ ಆಗಿದ್ದಾರೆ ಅಂತ ಇಟ್ಕೊಳ್ರಿ. ದಟ್ ಇಸ್ ಕಾಲ್ಡ್ as merging. US ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಹೇಗಿದೆ ಅಂತ ಎಲ್ಲ ಕಂಡೀಷನ್ಸ್ ನ ಅನುಭವ ಪಡ್ಕೊಳ್ತೀರಾ. ಸರಿನಾ? ಈಗ UPSC ನಲ್ಲಿ ಇವರು 2 ವರ್ಷ ಪ್ರೊಬೇಷನ್ ಅಂತ ಮಾಡ್ತಾರಲ್ಲ, ಪ್ರೊಬೇಷನ್ ಮಾಡ್ಬೇಕಾದ್ರೆ ಸೆಟಲ್ಮೆಂಟ್ ಪಡ್ಕೊಳ್ಳೋದು. ಯು ಫೀಲ್ ಸೆಟಲ್ಡ್ ಇನ್ ದಟ್ ಪರ್ಟಿಕ್ಯುಲರ್ ಪೊಸಿಷನ್. a certain degree of familiarity and settledness in that particular position. And that is what you develop. And then you start exercising your authority when you come to Sarupyata. When after sufficient practice, an abhyasi is able to secure his entry into a certain knot or granthi, he goes round it for some time, touring the place in order to acquire a thorough experience of it. ಅಮೆರಿಕಕ್ಕೆ ಹೋದ ತಕ್ಷಣ ಪ್ರತಿ ವಾರ ವೀಕೆಂಡಲ್ಲಿ ಮನೇಲಿ ಕೂತಿರ್ತಾರೆ, ಗ್ಯಾರಂಟಿ ಇಲ್ಲ, ಬೇರೆ ಬೇರೆ ಕಡೆ ರೌಂಡ್ ಹೊಡಿಬೇಕು ಅಂತ ಹೋಗ್ತೇನೆ ನೀನು, in order to experience get an experience of that particular place. That's exactly what happens when we go to a particular knot. ಅಲ್ಲೆಲ್ಲ ರೌಂಡ್ ಹೊಡಿತೀವಿ ಸುಮಾರು. When we become saturated with it, the merging has then come into effect. This is known as ಲಯಾವಸ್ಥಾ. ಸ್ಯಾಚುರೇಟೆಡ್ ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಹೆಂಗೆ, ಆ ಪಾಯಿಂಟ್ ನಲ್ಲಿ ಇರ್ತಕ್ಕಂಥ ಕಂಡೀಷನ್ಸ್ ಎಲ್ಲ ನಮಗೆ ಗ್ರಹಿಕೆ ಆಯ್ತು ಅಂತಂದ್ರೆ, ಅಬ್ಸರ್ವ್ ಆಯ್ತು ಅಂತಂದ್ರೆ, we become saturated with it. That is called as merging. But the consciousness of the condition we have now arrived at is also existent. So as long as that exists, the stage of merging cannot be said to be complete. For this, we have to now proceed to further to acquire the state of settledness, which is termed as identicality or sarupyata. ಸಾರೂಪ್ಯತಲ್ಲಿ ಏನಾಗುತ್ತೆ, ಆ ಕಂಡೀಷನ್ ಇದೆಯಲ್ಲ, ಆ ಕಂಡೀಷನ್ ಪೂರ್ತಿ ನಾವು ಮರ್ಜ್ ಆಗ್ಬಿಡ್ತೀವಿ. ಗ್ರಾಜುಲಿ we lose that, we become so settled that even when the condition goes away, we continue to feel settled. Initially, we feel settled because of the condition, but now the condition is gone, but still we feel settled. This again is not the final state, till it has now developed into a still finer state of sayujjata, where the impressions of the previous state of merging and identicality is also extinct. ಮರ್ಜಿಂಗ್ ಆಯ್ತು ಅಂತ ಅನ್ಸೋದಾಗ್ಲಿ, ಸಾರೂಪ್ಯತೆ ಆಯ್ತು ಅಂತಾಗ್ಲಿ, ಐಡೆಂಟಿಕ್ಯಾಲಿಟಿ ಆಯ್ತು ಅಂತಾಗ್ಲಿ, ಅದೆರಡೂ ಹೊರಟೋಗುತ್ತೆ, ನೆನಪೇ ಹೊರಟೋಗುತ್ತೆ. ಇದು ಡ್ರೈವಿಂಗ್ ಕಲಿತಾ ಇದ್ದ ಅಂತ ಇಟ್ಕೊಳ್ರಿ. ಡ್ರೈವಿಂಗ್ ಕಲಿಬೇಕಾದ್ರೆ ಹಿಂದಿನ ದಿವಸದ ನೆನಪು ನಿಮ್ಗೆ ಜ್ಞಾಪಕ ಇರುತ್ತೆ, ಆಯ್ತಾ. ಮೊದಲು ಡ್ರೈವಿಂಗ್ ಕಲೀಲಿಕ್ಕೆ ಹೋಗ್ತೀರಾ, ಡ್ರೈವಿಂಗ್ ಕಲೀಲಿಕ್ಕೆ ಹೋಗೋದು ಸಾಲೋಕ್ಯತ. ಡ್ರೈವಿಂಗ್ ಅಭ್ಯಾಸ ಮಾಡ್ತಾ ಮಾಡ್ತಾ ಹಿಂದಿನ ದಿವಸದಲ್ಲಿ ಏನ್ ಪಾಠ ಕಲ್ತ್ರಿ ಅದನ್ನು ಉಪಯೋಗಿಸ್ಕೊಂಡು ಡ್ರೈವಿಂಗ್ ಫರ್ದರ್ ಕಲಿಯೋದು, ಅದು ಸಾಮೀಪ್ಯತ. ಚೆನ್ನಾಗಿ ಡ್ರೈವಿಂಗ್ ಕಲಿಯೋದು ಸಾರೂಪ್ಯತ. ಡ್ರೈವಿಂಗ್ ಎಲ್ಲ ಕಲಿಸಾದ್ಮೇಲೆ ಡ್ರೈವಿಂಗ್ ಕಲ್ತಿದ್ದೀನಿ ಅಂತಲೇ ಮರ್ತು ಹೋಗೋದು ಸಾಯುಜ್ಯತ. ನೀವು ವೀಲ್ ಮೇಲೆ ಕೂತ್ಕೊಂಡ್ರೆ ತಕ್ಷಣ ಬರುತ್ತೆ ಡ್ರೈವಿಂಗ್. ನೀವೇನು ಈಗ ಡ್ರೈವಿಂಗ್ ನಾನು ನೆನಪಿಸ್ಕೊಳ್ತಾ ಇದ್ದೀನಿ ಅಂತ ಹೋಗ್ಬೇಕಾದ್ರೆ ಕೂತ್ಕೊಂಡು ನೆನಪಿಸ್ಕೊಂಡು ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಕೂತ್ಕೊಳ್ಳಲ್ಲ, ಅದು ತನಕ ತಾನಾಗೆ ಬರುತ್ತೆ. ಸಾಯುಜ್ಯತೆನಲ್ಲಿ ಇತ್ತು ಅಂತಂದ್ರೆ ಕಂಡೀಷನ್ ಮರೆಯಾಗುತ್ತೆ, ಬಟ್ ಬೇಕಾದಾಗ ತನಕ ತಾನಾಗೆ ಪ್ರಕಟ ಆಗುತ್ತೆ, ಅದು ಸಾಯುಜ್ಯತ. ಯು ಡೋಂಟ್ ಕ್ಯಾರಿ ದ ವೆಯ್ಟ್ ಆಫ್ ದ ಕಂಡೀಷನ್ ವಿತ್ ಯು. ಅರ್ಥ ಆಯ್ತಾ? ಈ ಸತಿ ಸಿಟ್ಟಿಂಗ್ ಬಂದಾಗ ಕೇಳ್ತೀನಿ, 4 ಸ್ಟೇಟ್ ಎಕ್ಸ್ಪ್ಲೈನ್ ಮಾಡ್ರಪ್ಪ ಅಂತ. ಸಾಲೋಕ್ಯತ, ಸಾಮೀಪ್ಯತ, ಸಾಯುಜ್ಯತ, ಸಾರೂಪ್ಯತ. ನಿಮ್ಮ ಅನುಭವದಲ್ಲೇ ಎಕ್ಸ್ಪ್ಲೈನ್ ಮಾಡಿ ಅಂತ ಹೇಳ್ತೀನಿ. ನಿಮಗೆ ಜೀವನದಲ್ಲಿ ಏನ್ ಅನುಭವ ಆಗಿದೆ ಅದರಲ್ಲೇ 4 ಸ್ಟೇಟ್ ಎಕ್ಸ್ಪ್ಲೈನ್ ಮಾಡಿ ಅಂತ ಹೇಳ್ತೀನಿ. ಅವಾಗ ನಿಮ್ಗೆ ಏನ್ ಅರ್ಥ ಆಗಿದೆ ಅಂತ ಗೊತ್ತಾಗುತ್ತೆ. ಸರಿನಾ? ಸೊ 4 ಸ್ಟೇಟು: ಸಾಲೋಕ್ಯತ, ಸಾಮೀಪ್ಯತ, ಸಾರೂಪ್ಯತ, ಸಾಯುಜ್ಯತ. ಸರಿನಾ? ಸೊ 4 ಜನ ಇದಾರಲ್ಲ, 4 ಬೇರೆ ಬೇರೆ ಎಕ್ಸಾಂಪಲ್ ಹೇಳಬೇಕು. ಎಲ್ಲರೂ ಒಂದೇ ಎಕ್ಸಾಂಪಲ್ ಹೇಳಿದ್ರೆ ನಾ ಕೇಳಲ್ಲ. ಸೊ 2, 3 ಎಕ್ಸಾಂಪಲ್ ಪ್ರಿಪೇರ್ ಮಾಡ್ಕೊಂಡು ಬನ್ನಿ. ಸರಿನಾ? ಬಿಕಾಸ್ ಐ ವಾಂಟ್ ಯು ಟು ಅಂಡರ್ಸ್ಟ್ಯಾಂಡ್ ದ ಕಾನ್ಸೆಪ್ಟ್ ವೆರಿ ವೆಲ್. ಓಕೆ, ಸರಿ. ಲಾಸ್ಟ್ ಪಾರ್ಟ್ ಇದು ಮುಗಿಸ್ಬಿಟ್ಟು ನಿಲ್ಸೋಣಂತೆ. ಅವಧೂತ ಸ್ಥಿತಿ, ಎಕ್ಸ್ಟ್ಯಾಟಿಕ್. ಎ ಪರ್ಸನ್ ಹೂ ಇಸ್ ಅಫ್ಲಿಕ್ಟೆಡ್ ಬೈ ದ ಪೆಕ್ಯುಲರ್ ಟೈಪ್ ಆಫ್ ಇನ್ಸ್ಯಾನಿಟಿ. ಅವಧೂತ ಸ್ಥಿತಿ ಅಂತಂದ್ರೆ ಸ್ವಲ್ಪ ಮಟ್ಟಿಗೆ ಹುಚ್ಚರಾಗಿದ್ದಾರೆ ಅಂತ. ಅದನ್ನ ನಮ್ಮಲ್ಲಿ ಅವಧೂತ ಸ್ಥಿತಿನ ಅವರು ಒಂದು ಆಧ್ಯಾತ್ಮಿಕ ಸ್ಥಿತಿ ಅಂತ ಅನ್ಕೊಳ್ತಾರೆ, ಬಟ್ ಆಕ್ಚುಲಿ ಇಟ್ಸ್ ಎ ಫಾರ್ಮ್ ಆಫ್ ಇನ್ಸ್ಯಾನಿಟಿ. ಅಂಡರ್ ಸಚ್ ಎ ಕಂಡೀಷನ್ his talks are mostly irrelevant and his actions are meaningless and strange, and his general behavior is self-willed. ಅವನ ಮನಸ್ಸಿಗೆ ಏನು ಅನ್ಸುತ್ತೋ ಅದು ಮಾಡ್ತಾನೆ, ಏನೋ ಒಟ್ಟುಗೂಡಿಸ್ತಾ ಇರ್ತಾನೆ, ಅವ್ನು ಮಾತಾಡಿದ ಯಾರಿಗೂ ಅರ್ಥವಾಗಲ್ಲ. He appears to be spellbound by his own thoughts, which tend mostly towards one particular direction. Such a condition sometimes comes upon an abhyasi when he passes through a particular state prevailing at a particular knot or granthi. It is more frequent in cases of tantric or occult pursuits. In spiritual pursuit too, such a condition sometimes arises when an abhyasi comes across some charmingly attractive condition at a point. But this happens only when the master lacks proper understanding of the situation or is otherwise incapable of apprehending its course by his own willpower and caliber. In this state, an abhyasi does not feel like going ahead, and having been overcome by its charming effect, settles down permanently in that, with the result that his onward progress gets arrested forever. It is in fact one of the foremost duties of a worthy master to remain vigilant of the situation and save the Abhyasi from drifting away from it, into it. In our system, the danger is avoided and the Abhyasi is made to bypass such points with the help of the master's extraordinary power, even without having an awareness of it. ಸೊ ನಮ್ಮ ಸಿಸ್ಟಮ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಏನ್ ಮಾಡ್ತಾರೆ, ಗುರುಗಳು ನಮ್ಮನ್ನ ಆ ಸ್ಥಿತಿಯಿಂದ ಪಾರ್ ಮಾಡ್ಬಿಡ್ತಾರೆ ಅಥವಾ ಆ ಸ್ಥಿತಿಯಿಂದ ಅವರ ಶಕ್ತಿಯನ್ನು ಉಪಯೋಗಿಸ್ಕೊಂಡು ಮುಂದಕ್ಕೆ ತಳ್ಳಿಬಿಡ್ತಾರೆ. ಹಾಗಾಗಿ ನಾವು ಯಾರು ಕೂಡ ಅವಧೂತ ಸ್ಥಿತಿಯಲ್ಲಿ ಸಿಕ್ಕಾಕೊಳ್ಳುವಂತ ಚಾನ್ಸಸ್ ಕಡಿಮೆ. ಯಾಕಂತಂದ್ರೆ ಗುರುಗಳ ರಕ್ಷಣೆ ಇರುತ್ತೆ ನಮಗೆ. ಸರಿನಾ? ಸರಿ, ಏನಾದ್ರು ಪ್ರಶ್ನೆ ಇದೆಯಾ?
Sir, is it also because of transmission that we do not get stuck in Avadhuta states?
Correct. When we say that Guru's power, partly it is the transmission also, cleaning also, our own prayer also, all these things help actually. But Abhyasi's ability to move ahead is not as powerful as the Guru's power. So the Guru waits for some time to see whether the Abhyasi can progress themselves. But when the Guru sees that the Abhyasi is not able to progress themselves, the Guru applies his power. ಈಗ ರಾಕೆಟ್ನ ಒಂದು ಸ್ಯಾಟಲೈಟ್ನ ತಗೊಂಡೋಗಿ ಒಂದು ಪೆಡಿಗ್ರಿಗೆ ಹಾಕಬೇಕು. ಒಂದು ಮೋಟರ್ನ ಫೈರ್ ಮಾಡ್ತೀರಾ. ಆ ಮೋಟರ್ನ ಫೈರ್ ಮಾಡಿದ್ಮೇಲೆ ಒಂದಿಷ್ಟು ಸ್ಪೀಡ್ ಒಂದು ಮೊಮೆಂಟಮ್ ಇರುತ್ತೆ. ಆ ಸ್ಪೀಡು ಮೊಮೆಂಟಮ್ ಮೇಲೆ ಎಷ್ಟು ದೂರದವರೆಗೂ ಹೋಗ್ಲಿಕ್ಕೆ ಸಾಧ್ಯ ಇದೆ ಅಂತ ನೋಡ್ತೀರಾ. ಆ ಸ್ಪೀಡು ಮೊಮೆಂಟಮ್ ಆ ಪೆಡಿಗ್ರಿಗೆ ಹೋಗ್ಲಿಕ್ಕೆ ಸಾಧ್ಯ ಆಗ್ತಿದೆ ಅಂತಂದ್ರೆ ನೀವು ನೆಕ್ಸ್ಟ್ ಮೋಟರ್ನ ಫೈರ್ ಮಾಡಲ್ಲ. ಅದು ಯಾವ ಪೆಡಿಗ್ರಿಗೆ ಹೋಗಬೇಕು, ಆ ಪೆಡಿಗ್ರಿಯಿಂದ ಬೇರೆ ಕಡೆ ಹೋಗ್ತಾ ಇದೆ, ಇಟ್ ಇಸ್ ನಾಟ್ ಏಬಲ್ ಟು ಸಸ್ಟೈನ್ ಇಟ್ ಸೆಲ್ಫ್ ಅಂದಾಗ ಯು ಫೈರ್ ದ ನೆಕ್ಸ್ಟ್ ಪವರ್, ದ ನೆಕ್ಸ್ಟ್ ಮೋಟರ್. ಸೊ ದಟ್ಸ್ ಎಕ್ಸಾಕ್ಟ್ಲಿ ಹೌ ಇಟ್ ಈಸ್. ದ ಗುರು ದೆನ್ ಯೂಸಸ್ ಹಿಸ್ ಪವರ್ ಟು ಟೇಕ್ ಯು ಅವೇ ಫ್ರಮ್ ದಟ್ ಪರ್ಟಿಕ್ಯುಲರ್ ಸ್ಟೇಟ್. ಸರಿನಾ? ಅರ್ಥ ಆಯ್ತಾ? ಎಕ್ಸಾಂಪಲ್ ಅರ್ಥ ಆಯ್ತಾ? ಸ್ಯಾಟಲೈಟ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಪವರ್ ಮೋಟರ್ ಬೂಸ್ಟರ್ ಅಂತ ಕರಿತೀವಿ, ಅದನ್ನ ಕೇಳಿದ್ದೀರಾ? ಸ್ಯಾಟಲೈಟ್ ಲಾಂಚ್ ಮಾಡಿದ್ಮೇಲೆ ಪ್ರತಿ ಸ್ಯಾಟಲೈಟ್ ಲಾಂಚ್ ಮಾಡಬೇಕಾದ್ರೆ ರಾಕೆಟ್ಗೆ ಬೂಸ್ಟರ್ಸ್ ಇರುತ್ತೆ. ಸೊ ಸ್ಯಾಟಲೈಟ್ ಅಲ್ಲೂ ಕೆಲವು ಬೂಸ್ಟರ್ಸ್ ಇರುತ್ತೆ. ಸೊ ದೇ ಕ್ಯಾನ್ ಫೈರ್ ದ ಬೂಸ್ಟರ್ಸ್ ಅಂಡ್ ಗೆಟ್ ದ ಸ್ಯಾಟಲೈಟ್ ಇನ್ ಟು ದ ರೈಟ್ ಪೆಡಿಗ್ರಿ ದಟ್ ದ ಸೈಂಟಿಸ್ಟ್ ವಾಂಟ್ ಫಾರ್ ಇಟ್ಸ್ ಫಂಕ್ಷನಿಂಗ್. ಎಲ್ಲ ಪೆಡಿಗ್ರಿನಲ್ಲೂ ಎಲ್ಲ ಫಂಕ್ಷನಿಂಗ್ ಮಾಡೋಕ್ಕಾಗಲ್ಲ. ಫಾರ್ ದ ಪರ್ಪಸ್ ದಟ್ ದ ಸ್ಯಾಟಲೈಟ್ ಇಸ್ ಇಂಟೆಂಡೆಡ್ ಫಾರ್, ದ ಡಿಫರೆಂಟ್ ಪೆಡಿಗ್ರೀಸ್ ಆರ್ ಚೂಸನ್. ಅದೇ ಥರನೇ ಇಲ್ಲೂ ಕೂಡ ನಮ್ಮ ಪವರ್ ಇಂದನೇ ನಾವು ಮುಂದಕ್ಕೆ ಹೋಗಕ್ಕೆ ಆಗ್ತಾ ಇಲ್ಲ ಅಂತಂದ್ರೆ ಗುರುಗಳು ಏನ್ ಮಾಡ್ತಾರೆ, ಅವ್ರ ಪವರ್ ಉಪಯೋಗಿಸ್ಕೊಂಡು ನಮ್ಮನ್ನು ಮುಂದಕ್ಕೆ ತಳ್ತಾರೆ. ನಾವು ಎಷ್ಟು ಮಾಡಿದ್ರು ಬರೀ 30-32 ಸ್ಟಕ್ ಆಗ್ತಿದ್ವು, 35 ಮಾರ್ಕ್ ಇಲ್ಲ ಅಂತಂದ್ರೆ ಗುರುಗಳು 3 ಗ್ರೇಸ್ ಮಾರ್ಕ್ ಕೊಟ್ಟು ತಳ್ತಾರೆ ಮುಂದಕ್ಕೆ. ಇದು ಅದೇ ತರ. ಆಯ್ತು, ಸರಿ ಕಣ್ರಿ. 7, 9, 10 ಆಗ್ತಾ ಬಂತು. ಸರಿನಾ? So we will catch up again sometime next week. So I'm hoping that in the next 2 weeks we should be able to finish this book. ಈ book finish ಮಾಡ್ತು ಅಂತಂದ್ರೆ you will have some basis to understand many other aspects. ಅದಕ್ಕೆ ಈ book ತಗೊಂಡಿರೋದು. ಸ್ಪಿರಿಚುವಲ್ ಅನಾಟಮಿ ಇದು ಅಬ್ರಿಜ್ಡ್ ವರ್ಷನ್ ಇದು. ಸರಿನಾ? ಇದೊಂಚೂರು ಸ್ವಲ್ಪ ಚೆನ್ನಾಗಿ ಅರ್ಥ ಮಾಡ್ಕೊಂಡ್ರೆ ಸ್ಪಿರಿಚುವಲ್ ಅನಾಟಮಿ ಚೆನ್ನಾಗಿ ಅರ್ಥ ಆಗುತ್ತೆ. ಬಟ್ ಸ್ಪಿರಿಚುವಲ್ ಅನಾಟಮಿ ನಿಮ್ಗೆ ಎಕ್ಸಾಮ್ ಇಲ್ಲ. ಅಟ್ಲೀಸ್ಟ್ ಇದಾದ್ರೂ ತಕ್ಕಮಟ್ಟಿಗೆ ಅರ್ಥ ಮಾಡ್ಕೊಂಡ್ರೆ ಬೇರೆ ಬುಕ್ಸ್ ಓದ್ತಿರಲ್ಲ, ಅದಕ್ಕೊಂದು ಬುನಾದಿ ಸಿಗುತ್ತೆ, ಫೌಂಡೇಶನ್ ಸಿಗುತ್ತೆ. ಅದಕ್ಕೆ ಈ ಬುಕ್ ಮುಗಿಸ್ಬಿಡೋಣ, ಆಮೇಲೆ ಬೇರೆ ಪುಸ್ತಕ ಓದೋಣ ಅಂತ ಹೇಳಿ. ಸರಿನಾ? ಸರಿಪ್ಪ, ಹಾಗಾದ್ರೆ ಗುಡ್ ನೈಟ್ ಹಾಗಾದ್ರೆ. ಓಕೆ, ನಮಸ್ತೆ ಹಾಗಾದ್ರೆ.
ನಮಸ್ತೆ.